Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Joseph Cervantes with Your Cup of Joe, and we're back today to talk a little bit about a topic that I threw out there on Facebook that I got some responses on. You're not going to want to miss this show. We'll talk soon. Hey, what's going on, everybody? We're back. Okay, so I know there's a lot of motivational speakers out there. Actually, I'm pretty sure that a majority of the people out there are motivational speakers, just because when you go onto social media nowadays, everybody's got memes and they've got all these sayings and all these quotes and stuff like that. And so, in a sense, they're sharing their energy with other people. And so recently I went out because I needed to find out from people where they were lacking in their life, and really what it was is looking for insight into some of the different topics that I could talk about just based on some of the experiences I've had. And one of the responses I got back was not necessarily in a religious standpoint, but more from a spiritual standpoint of why do things happen and why do we have to accept those things? And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that today. You know, I've had a lot of experiences in my life. When I was a kid, I was about 5 years old, and I remember we were watching cartoons. We were in the living room of our house in Los Angeles, and my dad was gone, but my mom was home. She was in the restroom, and I remember we were watching cartoons. It was a Sunday morning, and I ran into the kitchen, and I grabbed a piece of cheese out of the refrigerator because I was hungry. I was a little kid. It was mid-morning, so I wanted a little bit of a snack. And I remember the thought process of getting up and running into the kitchen because we had just gone to commercial. And I remember grabbing the cheese and coming out, and lo and behold, my sister was making coffee on the stove because at that point we didn't have a coffee maker. So she would boil water on the stove, and she was coming over, and as she came over, I was coming around the corner, and wham! I ran right into the pot. And what ended up happening was it slipped and it hit all over me where the water just poured right down the side of my body. And so I do still have some scars. I have some scarring on my chest. And I remember going into the hospital and sitting in an ice tub, and the doctor coming over with gallons and gallons of water, just pouring these things in my head. And I'm like, I can't breathe, and wondering why this is happening to me. And going into the next couple of days, I could remember little small events that had happened. People would come over because they wanted to see how I was doing, and I appreciated that, but I was wrapped up in bandages, and I just remember being called a mummy. And as a kid, these things are traumatizing. You don't get over these things very easily. And I often ask myself, why did that happen to me? Going into the future, I went through a divorce. Obviously, there were a lot of other things that happened to me during that time. I got hit by a car on my bike. I got into a major car accident. All these things took a physical toll on me. I lost jobs. I had lost relationships. But I went through a divorce. And, going into marriage, I had taken it very seriously. Commitment to me was very serious. And so when I gone through the divorce, I tried to understand what it was that I was dealing with. And I remember that I went through a severe bout of depression for maybe 2 weeks until I heard some bad things about it. I was on medication that a doctor had prescribed me. And I was never a proponent for medication. But I thought I needed a way out. I needed something to help me out because I was barely eating. During my lunch, I would sit outside and I would watch the clouds pass by. I was in a really somber mood. I wasn't performing at work. I couldn't focus. I knew that it was going to have a dramatic effect on me being a dad, just because my boys weren't going to be with me all the time, and I could not pinpoint why this was happening to me. I remember going into church one day and it was completely empty, and all the pews were just glistening, and the light was coming in through the stained glass, and there was a statue of Jesus hanging on the cross. And I remember crying to this cross, and I'm looking at this cross and I'm asking, why? Why me? Why did this happen to me? What did I do to deserve this type of pain that is being inflicted on me? And I lost a little bit of faith. I lost a little bit of faith in a higher source. I lost a lot of faith in myself as an individual. But it wasn't until I was able to really reflect and to take the emotions out of things and to look at it from a third person perspective and to really analyze my actions and who I was and what I had done, that I actually found out what I was supposed to find. And even with it's kind of similar to when somebody passes. The trials and tribulations that you go through when you lose somebody that means the world to you. I've had a lot of people that were very close to me pass. And during that time, there's a lot of pain that goes through a person because of the ego. We all have it. It's not a bad thing. It's our subconscious and how we live our life. It's our fight or flight syndrome. It's pain, pleasure. And it's what we built an association to. And what we tend to do as human beings is we look at the loss of a person and we say to ourselves, that's not fair. That's not fair. How is it that I'm not going to have this person around anymore? How is it that I'm not going to have these experiences anymore with that individual? And while I get it, I understand. It's also not your journey. They lived their life. They lived their purpose. They did what they had to do here. I don't have all the answers. I don't claim to. But what I do have the answer to, and what I was able to find out through all of these experiences I've gone through, is that you don't really have a choice. You have a choice to make, obviously, in the present and where you're currently at, that is going to dictate where you're going to go in the future. You have that choice more so than anybody, because it's your life. And the things that you don't have the choice for, the things that are going to be dictated to you, whether somebody's going to love you, or whether you're going to come around that corner and somebody's going to splash you with water, or maybe you go in your car to go pick up the kids from school, or something happens where you get into a car accident, or you see somebody, or you care about somebody and they get into a car accident. You don't know these things. You don't know when they're going to happen. And there may be a lesson behind it, and there may not be a lesson behind it. But the simple fact of the matter is that it's life. And you have to go through those things. You have to experience it. But the question I have for you is, do you experience it? Do you allow yourself to experience that? Because a lot of us pull the shades. We pull down the curtains, we close the windows, we make it a dark environment, and we drown ourselves with bullshit. We watch TV, we watch movies, we eat food for pleasure, we do all these different things to distract us. But what we've forgotten about is how to live, how to experience those feelings, to really experience those feelings. A prime example of this, okay? I was finishing up some work, and I had a friend who didn't feel good, and so we decided we were going to watch a movie. And I had seen this movie already, and so we were watching this thing, and it was The Fault in Our Stars. And if you haven't seen it, please go watch it, because it's such a telling story about how to feel life. And so we get to the end of the movie, and I'm not going to ruin it for you guys that haven't seen it, but there was some emotions that just come over you, and it's a feeling of loss, because the writer and the director and the producer really put the emotion in you like if they were a part of your life. But on the other side of it, you get to really experience what it was that they experienced. What was life that they experienced, and how can you put it into your terms, into your life, into what you're going through. You're not always going to have the answer right then and there. But if you stop thinking about what it is that you're struggling with and start thinking about the end result that you want, that's where you find the journey. The life is in the journey. Life isn't about the struggle. Life is about the process that you're going through. And you have to stop and pay attention to that. You have to allow those emotions to be felt inside of you. And when you do that, that's when you really live, and that's when you really experience faith, and when you really experience everything that life's meant to be, because that's what God wanted. That's what God intended for all of us, to experience life. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. So, thank you very much for today. I appreciate it. I know this topic was a little bit off of the normal things that we talk about, but I hope that you were able to find some sort of an answer within this. And if it wasn't an answer, maybe it inspired you to go investigate something else. Go look a little bit deeper into the way that you're accepting all of these things that are coming into your life. And maybe you'll actually give them the time and the presence that they deserve. Experience the emotions. Let those things in. Grief, sorrow, happiness, joy. Be present to experience those things. Until next time, we'll talk soon. Take care. Have a great day today.